So the Nikon D7200 has come out, and here's just my thoughts and opinions on it. Regarding this, what I'll be looking at in terms of the photos and some of the specs that comes up is from DP Review, Digital Photography Review website. So if you want to go into more depth than this, have a look at their website, and I'll put a link to this one specifically down below. But okay, let's go into my thoughts and review of this camera. First thing I'm going to do is just count how many buttons, switches, dials, clickety things are on this camera body alone. So let's start with on the side. So if we go here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 on the side, not including all the buttons there. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, we're up to. Okay, 17 preview. Let's go into the right back, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, so a total of, I think we're up to 33, it could be 34, I'm trying to think if I did, yeah, okay, so 33 or 34 buttons. How many had multiple options on them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 33 buttons and 10 of them having multiple options in there. Okay, that's a lot of switches and buttons and dials to learn. And I always recommend for anybody who is going to be a photographer, they need to know their camera like the back of their hand. Learn what all those buttons do. The worst thing is going to a job or going to a shoot and then kind of going, I don't know how to get the pop-up flash to flick up. How do I deal with that? So you've got to learn where all those buttons are and know them, and know their purposes and know what they do. So that is a lot of learning that you're going to have. So if you are new into photography, or you're thinking, hey, I've got an iPhone, I'm going to move up to a digital SLR, be prepared that you are going to a whole world of multiple options and buttons and dials and things, which can potentially lead you for a long time just kind of going, I'm not getting the photo I'm wanting or what I'm trying to get. So again, I think this one will be coming along with about a 350-page instruction manual. I would advise definitely learning this. So about this camera, it's a 24 megapixel sensor. It's an APS-C size sensor, so it's not full frame. It's what Nikon considers to be a cropped frame sensor, which is 1.5 times smaller than a full frame sensor. But still, 24 megapixels is a huge, ridiculous number of pixels, and you can blow up any picture to any size that you ever want taken with that. And also it gives you a huge ability to crop within the image as well and still have huge images, not a problem. So 24 megapixel sensor, fantastic. And also the sensor which comes with this camera, and from the reviews I've seen of that, it's got great image quality, it's got great dynamic range, color rendition and all that kind of stuff, and its ISO is very respectable in terms of the category that this camera resides in. Only slight bummer that I would say straight away is, for me, is that it's a solid LCD on the back. It's a 3.2 inch, so nice and big and bright and all that kind of stuff. However, it is stuck to the body, which is a bit of a shame because you're paying more for this camera. But yeah, if you went just down a level to the D5300 instead of the 7200, you get a fully articulating screen. And I really appreciate the value that you get with a fully articulating screen, not just the flip up and down, that's pretty useless, but ones where you can bring it to the side and rotate. They are really worth their money. So I'm a little bit upset that, well, I don't know if I'm upset. The reason why I suspect they don't have the fully articulating screen in the bigger body cameras is because of the chance of the bigger body cameras or just the heavier weight cameras just being a little bit too heavy, and that just means that if you were to put it down in a way, it's much more likely to snap the screen off. The lighter the camera, usually the smaller the lenses, the less likely for the articulating screen to be twisted and bent and snapped off. So that would be the only kind of thing I think here. However, it's also is not a touch screen either. Again, I have really started to appreciate the benefits that you get from a touchscreen because I use the Panasonic GH4, and that's got a fully articulating and touchscreen sensor. Same with the Nikon D5300 as well, or 5500 I think it is now. And I think that is definitely becoming the future norm, certainly for people who are coming into the photography market. I think if you're already had a camera for a while, then you won't really notice this and you're happy to go and scroll through all the menus. But the ability to just kind of go one button click to a whole new page instead of having to go back, up, left, right, down, down, down until you get to another page is both time-saving and much more intuitive as well. So that's the only downside I would say about that, is that it doesn't have a flippy-out touchscreen LCD on the back. It also, great thing is, it offers dual SD memory card slots. So if you've got your little SD cards, it takes 2 of them, which is fantastic, which I really appreciate as well. The fact that you can maybe save all your videos to one memory card and your photos to another, or your RAWs and then your JPEGs. Or you can just do a complete backup in camera at the same time. And that's quite handy, so, because sometimes some people, their workflow, maybe they have one computer that does their photos and another computer does their videos. So you just take out the memory cards, stick it into your computers, and then all of a sudden one computer is just working through the video files and another one's working through your raw photos. Especially at 24 megapixels, they are quite big files. So sometimes you want to separate your workflow that way, and I think that's quite handy. Now, here's something which a lot of full frame shooters would be quite jealous of here. The maximum shutter speed goes to 1/8000th of a second. For example, quite a few of the full frame cameras just now are being limited down to 1/4000th of a second. So that is a whole stop difference. So 1 times the amount of brightness difference. So a lot of people are kind of going, hey, how come in this crop frame camera we can get an 8,000th of a second? Meanwhile, if we get the full frame, much more expensive version, it's only a 4,000th of a second. So that's a little bummer. And at the same time, we're getting a shutter speed with the flash, a flash sync speed of 1/250th of a second. It will also have auto FP, so you can go faster than sync speed as well, so that doesn't really matter too much. But it is something which is quite interesting for a lot of people who have bought, say, the Nikon D750, which is limited to only a 4,000th of a second shutter, and also I think it's only 180th of a second flash sync speed, which everyone's just like, why are you putting in restrictions into what the camera can do when especially lots of other cameras can do these other things? So that's something which I think great. This camera's got those things and it's got them good. It can also do 6 frames a second, which is more than enough. Very few times will you ever need to kind of go faster than 6 frames. Maybe 7 frames may have been better. It can always be better, but rarely are you ever going to go faster than 6 frames a second. Now, here's something which I find a little bit interesting. So your video frames, we've got 1080p, brilliant. 60, 50, 25 and 24 frames a second, fantastic. That's what everyone's been wanting. We probably want like 2.7K or 4K, that'd be even better, but we didn't put that in, so that's not a problem. However, the odd thing here is if you're wanting to do 50 or 60 frames a second, so you get a little bit slow motion, you have the ability to bring, if you're shooting at 60 frames a second video, and you bring it into your editing software and you bring it down to a 24p timeline, so it's only 24 frames a second, you have the ability to slow that down by 40%, which is a huge, is it 40%? 45, somewhere around about there, huge percent slowing down your video footage. However, for some reason, it only does this in a crop mode. So, okay, we've already got a cropped sensor, but within that, crop sensor in comparison to like a full frame sensor. But if you're wanting to do 1080 fast frames a second, which is, 60 frames is kind of a standard, I would say, with a lot of people, they're having to do a 1.3 times crop. So you're having to crop within the actual sensor that you've already got. And the 1.3 times 1.5 of a full frame sensor kind of almost brings that down to a micro 4/3 size of image that you're getting on the sensor. So this, I don't understand why. I don't see the reason why. It seems a bit odd, and it's also a bit restrictive. So for example, with the work which I do, I use ultra wide angle lenses, and on this camera the most ultra wide angle lens I could get, which isn't a fisheye, would be like the Sigma 10 to 20mm lens, or the Takina 11 to 16 f2.8. But if I was then shooting in a 1.3 crops, well, then I wouldn't get my full 10mm. I would be somewhere kind of 13, 14mm, which, you know, some people that's not an issue, but to me, I'm sometimes needing as much wideness as possible. So that is just like, why? Why? Clearly they've got the technology to do it. 1080 at 60 frames a second has been in other camera manufacturers' cameras for years now, and they don't have to restrict it to just a further crop within the sensor. Don't understand what the reason is for that, and I just find it a stupid restriction. I suspect in the Nikon D7300 that will have disappeared. So again, that's something which is making me kind of go, not fussed by this. The SEPA battery life is saying it's doing 1,110 photos, and its weight, including the battery, is under 700 grams. So it's light, and its battery lasts for a long time. So those are the things which I think are all very, very, very good. So my opinion on who is this camera for? Well, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one now, because I recently did a video which is talking about how generally the camera market is crashing, and it's partly because so many people who are entering the camera market are kind of not, they're expecting ease of use, simplicity, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're going from something like a point and shoot or an iPhone or something like that, and you're going, I want a brilliant image quality and I've got about £1,000 to spend, and they go, right, I'm going to buy the 7,200. You're suddenly thrown into the deep end of having to deal with, yeah, okay, there is auto and there is the simple P for program mode and all that kind of stuff, but for you to know the ins and outs of your camera, and this is not even including flash, like once you bring in flash and you've got your flash on top and you've got this information there, it is a whole world of education that's going on here. This camera, I suspect, could very easily be a second body for a lot of photographers. So if a photographer's got a full frame camera, they may kind of go, I just want a slightly smaller one, which has got great image quality, and they would go for this because they know how to work it all already. What I don't think this would be is anybody who's got the D7000, which was the 16 megapixel camera, or the D7100, which was the 24 megapixel camera, pretty much exactly the same, but slightly less frames a second and all that kind of stuff. I don't think this is really a camera for them to upgrade. I would always recommend, in terms of upgrading, go for a generation and a level. So if you're at the 3200, go a generation would be the 3300, but I would also say skip a level, so go up to the 5300 or 5500, wherever it was. So that's a level and a generation. So for this one, I would say if you were at a 5000, again, even though if you were a 5300 owner or 5500 owner, I don't think this camera really promotes you to buy this camera. It's not that as big a jump up. Yeah, it's probably a stronger body, but it's effectively all the same functions, and at the same time you lose the fully articulating screen and the fully articulating touchscreen. So I'm not sure that that would really have a major effect either. I reckon anybody who's at the 3,300, 3,500 cameras, this would be an upgrade. I would say, yeah, definitely this would be one to upgrade to migrate to. But if you are already a 5,000 user or a 7,000 user, I would say that the only upgrade you've got is really going up to something like the D750 or the 610, or what I would recommend, the D810. But then that's an awesome camera. I've got that just now and I'm loving it. So it's not really an upgrader for anybody that's really in the same kind of area. It may be for people who are just needing a second body, but again, at the current price of it being around about £1,000, it's just going to drop price very quickly, and I just don't see anybody really buying this in the first couple of months coming out. These prices always plummet very quickly after about 3-4 months of it being on the market, and as it's not much of an upgrade for other people in that area, it's not going to get people upgrading. Additionally, you're not really going to get people going, I'm switching brands. Currently, the Canon 7D Mark II totally kills this. 7D Mark II, more professional body. I in my opinion. I should say that. But it's got 10 frames a second, or is it 12 frames a second? Can't remember. What I would say is, if you are having any looks, compare this to the Canon 7D Mark II, which I was blown away by the performance statistics of that. The only downside with the Canon 7D Mark II is that the image sensor on that doesn't quite have as high a dynamic range capability as what the Nikon camera sensors have, and its ISO is sometimes not as good there. So if you're looking for image quality, maybe this camera. If you're looking for camera functionality, so the extra frames a second, extra video, extra this, that, and other stuff, the Canon is definitely the winner. So what I'm saying is that anybody who's a Canon shooter, they're not going to be going, oh, D7200, I'm totally switching brands. So it's just, this is really just such a teeny weeny iteration within the camera brand, which to me is really a bit of a meh. As a camera on its own, it's wow, this is impressive, look at all the things it can do, but it's still got a couple of flaws and a couple of restrictions to it, which mean that I would potentially just be waiting until the 7300 comes out. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Cheers, bye bye. One last thing is that if you are on my photography channel, you may not know that I've got two other channels. One is my exercise channel, which you can check out, which is Dom Bauer Exercise. I think the actual name is just youtube.com/Dom Bauer. And I've also got another one on this channel, so I've got Dom's Talks. And a lot of that is going to be about me dealing with my first ever newborn baby, little Logan Bauer, born on the 4th of September, and so I'm learning to be a dad. So it's all my mistakes and all the things which I'm learning which are quite useful. So if you want to see more about little Logan and how he's getting on, check out Dom's Talks. And if you want to see, I've also got Dom's Flights as well. So again, I'm doing a lot of stuff flying my DJI Phantom around the places, and also going through the process of getting the license to do it commercially. So if you want to see how I'm doing that, check out the Dom's Flights channel as well, which I put all the links to down below. So thanks for watching, bye bye.